kill them before they eat. Slow news days are a routine curse in the journalism business. These are the ones who usually, Tuesdays and Wednesdays, and always Saturdays, when George Jones or Angus Drew is sitting in for Peter Jennings on the ABC Evening News, and Dan Rather leads off with a story about Chinese pandas refusing to mate in public, in full view of leering, hooting crowds at the National Zoo in Washington. CNN will fill 13 minutes with grim vignettes on the death of sex in the 80s, and Jerry Falwell will lecture on the horror of herpes and AIDS, along with the tragic epidemic of teenage pregnancy. And Tom Brocco will be seen to doze off on camera, mumbling fitfully about lost dogs and lip cancer and constitutional flaws in Graham Rudman. Days like these are not rare. They run about 50-50, even for wire editors and news junkies. But every once in a while, the balance will tip, all at once, jamming 8 or 9 big ones into the hamper before people like Rather or Brokaw even get to work. And by sundown, they are all getting crazier. Last Friday was one of these days. A genuine howler with an energy all its own. My story list got faster and fatter by the hour. The original plan was for a long-delayed and deeply political screed on how the planned murder, by Reagan and Graham and Rudman, of Amtrak, our national passenger rail system. The pigs meant to kill it off, for reasons that would shame every greedhead since Ebenezer Scrooge. It was a good story, but only one of many. By noon I was half mad with new input, and Amtrak was beyond the back burner. The early news feeds on the big dish had Graham Rudman gutted in court for constitutional reasons. Baby Doc Duvalier had fled Haiti as mobs gnawed the bones of his father, and the presidential election in the Philippines was dissolving in fraud and violence. Even Peter Jennings was stunned, weeping helplessly on camera in Manila as thugs ran off with the ballot boxes. Official U.S. observer Senator Richard Lugar, Republican, Indiana, once known as Richard Nixon's favorite mayor when he ran Indianapolis, was so appalled by President Ferdinand Marcos's flagrant abuse of the democratic process that he angrily denounced Marcos on international TV, a move that could threaten the whole U.S. military presence in Southeast Asia if Marcos steals the election. That would have been enough, even for a fast day in the news business. But as the hours went by, there was more. Saturday was Bob Marley's birthday, and also James Dean's. Clint Eastwood was making an ugly run for the mayor's job in Carmel. And in Chicago, Mike Ditka was denouncing former Bears defensive coach Buddy Ryan as a show hog who got too big for his britches. Ryan has already hired Bears receiver coach Ted Plum to help him run the hapless Philadelphia Eagles next season, and rumors out of Chicago say Buddy is now dealing for the core of the Bears defensive unit. Starting safeties Gary Fenkick and Dave Durson are free agents. Super Bowl MVP Richard Dent is still without a contract. And All-Pro middle linebacker Mike Singletary has said more than once, "If Buddy Ryan leaves, I want to go with him." So much for dynasties. The Bears will be lucky to make the playoffs next year. Names like Dent and Fennick and Singletary are no small cogs in the vaunted 46 defense, which humiliated that gang of half-mad neurotics from the outskirts of Boston and the Superdome. A Philadelphia sports writer, in fact, wrote that Singletary gave the Patriots their drug problem, i.e., he drugged them all over the field. Raymond Berry should have had the grace to be quiet. The Patriots are a death ship now. They will not make the playoffs for another 20 years. Many things happened on Friday. Fidel Castro swam naked with 200 blind Mexican children off a public beach in Havana. Muammar Gaddafi threatened to kill any Jew who tried to cross the Mediterranean. And Nelson Mandela was allegedly freed by the Huns in South Africa. But none of these things really mattered when the big shoe finally dropped. It happened late in the day, when my voice was totally gone from some kind of pox or swine flu. It was Skinner, calling from Miami to say that he had booked rooms at the Club Med in Haiti for the first week of Carnival. Port-au-Prince will be totally crazy, he said. I have a chartered plane standing by. How soon can you get here? Pretty quick, I replied. But I have no passport. It was stolen in Spanish Wells. Never mind passports, he shouted. Nobody's going to ask. The police are all slaughtered. Were all slaughtered by rioters. The government is gone. There is no law at all. He laughed harshly, and I could hear him dropping ice in a glass. I know these people, he said. We can go wherever we want. At that moment, I was watching a news clip on TV of Baby Doc at the wheel of his own BMW, leaning on the horn as he raced through a hostile mob on his way to the airport in France. The Duvalier dictatorship, even older than Marcos's 20-year reign in Manila, was finally collapsing, and there was no law at all in Haiti. There was also a voodoo angle, Skinner said. Ominous reports from the countryside of zombies wandering aimlessly about the fields. The undead, as they say in the trade. Half-alive natives who were dug up out of graveyards and put to work for harvesting sizzle. These tales were all formally documented, he said, by American doctors and experts. Local voodoo priests had created their own monstrous labor pool, making everything from American baseballs to fine rum in Hager slacks. It made no sense, but as a story it was hard to ignore. It's all confirmed by CIA research, he assured me. I can put you in touch with the big boys, the voodoo priests, and the zombie masters. Why not? I thought. It seemed like the right time to go. So I told him to hold the plane and make arrangements to pick up some cash in Miami. He would get into Port-au-Prince in time for dinner tonight. We would get into Port-au-Prince in time for dinner tonight. February 10th, 1986.